1, 2, 3, swing it.
Do you have an old sound tape or your favorite cassette tape that you want converted to CD or MP3 format? Do you need a demo CD, radio ad, a DJ or even a sound system for your wedding, birthday or special occasion? Then why not get in contact with KTR Records on 07931 152 448 or check out our website on www.ktrrecords.com. We have been in business since 2004 and also undertake community projects. So for your remixes, doublets and all your sound editing needs, why not contact KTR Records, official sponsor of World Jam Global Radio. KTR Records, coming your way.
I was terrified about sharing the vulnerabilities of people with difficulties reading and spelling words. However, I can see the value in sharing, and I have taken the time to make some notes about this in my book, Dyslexic: The Silent Difference. You can get your copy now at www.a1tribe.com or amazon.com or amazon.co.uk. Thank you again, everyone, for your support.
Red Promotions and Highly Blessed Promotions give you Tobago 2020. Tobago 2020, the ultimate carnival experience. Landing on Sunday, 23rd of February 2020. The all-inclusive holiday of a lifetime at an unbeatable price, starting from £1,349 for 7 nights, all-inclusive. With 10 nights optional, there will be fun-filled day and night events like the popular all-white party, pool party, barbecue boat ride, plus the carnival experience and much more. Music by some of London's finest, Courtney Melody, Commander B, D-Mac, TC Fords, DJ Matt and Euro Millions and more. So join us and let's live our best lives. For general inquiries, call 07729 190 026. For booking and more info, call SN Travel on 0207 254 0136. Quoting Tobago 2020. Sponsored by VibesFM.net, MrMighty.co.uk, SN Travel and
World Jam Global.
Do you like music like this?
Great music all the time.
Or like this?
The music you love.
Maybe this.
Great music that makes you want to turn up the volume loud.
Or life chat like this.
Especially where human life is concerned. Surely, sooner or later, people will realize that lives actually matter.
Then you're in the right place. Keep it locked to World Jam Global, where music is harmony.
Music 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Yeah, you're my World Jam. Hotter than them.
See live schedule.
I want to say another big good evening going out from me, Kervin, Julien. It is Issues Today live on World Jam Global Radio.
My time, I paid for my crime.
You can catch us live on www.worldjamglobalradio.com.
I paid for my crime.
Catch us live on Facebook, catch us live on YouTube, or you can catch us live on Twitter. This is the show that examines police brutality, police corruption, kill by cops, unlawful killing,
already did my time.
Anything that breaches our human and civil rights, where law enforcement is concerned.
Back in the day, I didn't really care about the system.
And we welcome back for the first show of 2020 our Roundtable team.
Many rivals.
Jerry Summers, Patrick Lane, Scott Rushin, Stephanie Babb, Yolanda McNear,
I was good with my hands
and TJ, that's my co-producer, Therese Gallagher.
I was getting money, life was so sweet. Now things have changed.
D. Martin, we'll talk about her very shortly, but she's had to rush off to the hospital. Her sister's expecting a baby and gone into labor.
Just spin it all.
Well, we'll do all of that. Congratulations in a very short time.
Live in hell.
In the meantime, please use this opportunity to go onto our Facebooks, onto the various links, and share this stream live wherever you are.
Already did my time. I paid for.
As you know, many of us are still in Facebook jail.
Already did my time.
I'm in Facebook jail until February the 14th. That's a whole nother 4 or 5 weeks.
Paid for my crime.
Want to say a big shout out going out to Jennifer Boas Olin, Christina Reeves, Tonya Andrews, Rick Medlock, Darren Tyson, we see ya.
That's why I'm telling my story to you and you.
We welcome you to another live edition
doing all kind
of Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio. Hang tight.
I know the life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd chew you up and spit you out like a real alligator, especially all you haters.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in...
Yeah, but it is the first show of 2020. And we've got an emotional roller coaster lined up for you.
My time, pay for my crime.
Shouts to Vanessa Whirling, Isabella Morgan. Please use this opportunity to share this stream live
Pay for my crime.
to all of your groups,
In my time.
on your personal walls.
Pay for my crime.
Set up a watch party. Tell a friend to tell another friend.
I pay for my crime.
We are live.
Get my time.
This is Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio.
I'm trying to get this felony off my back
And we'll be introducing our guests
and have the right
just around 4 minutes from now.
citizen again. This is my message to all of my friends in the pen, statewide, worldwide. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money like
Hey Rick, I've been banned for 5 months since the 5th of October.
I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all.
Apparently I'm in breach of their
Trying to cope.
community rules or whatever it is.
Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
All we did was tell the truth. Just telling the truth. Most of our Roundtable team have also been banned,
Already
and we're all finding it difficult to post onto our own pages. Which is why most of you haven't seen me or seen my post for some time. It's not that I've not been here.
already did my time.
I'm in Facebook jail.
I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply. I'm not proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you and you. I had to repent.
Vanessa is checking in from San Antonio.
Shit.
Rick is in Coventry. Hugh Smith is in South Wales.
The life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd chew you up and spit you out like a...
If you or
Especially all you...
a family member has been a victim to the loss of a loved one through police brutality, wrongful killing, unlawful killing, or corruption, stay tuned. The theme of today's show,
Going on right
Assimilated, Normality. We're going to be talking about how people continue in the midst of their crisis.
Trying to cope with this living hell. Trying to cope with this living hell. Yes, I am. 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 Trying to cope with this living hell. This living hell. This living hell. This living hell. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us
Please continue to
temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
As I said, the wife wears the trousers around here.
All those drive-by killings, stop them. It ain't about nothing.
Shouts to Sophie Watson, Katrina O'Neill, Amanda Cleesby.
Let him cast the first.
Thank you for joining. You are live on World Jam Global Radio. It is Issues Today.
So I can get my life on.
And we're going to be going live across to our Roundtable team very shortly.
Every citizen again. This is my message to all of my friends in the pen, statewide.
Happy New Year to all of you who are joining us for the first time this year.
Stabbing each other.
It's the first show of 2020. Issues Today is back. We're really looking to make a powerful inroads supporting more and more families throughout this year. Stand by.
It's for the people who are wondering why we're in the streets and we're outraged. It's basically a rundown of what's happened, and this is recent. And it's, if you run, you die. Hashtag Walter Scott. If you stay and get arrested, you die. Hashtag Freddie Gray. Lay down while handcuffed, you die. Hashtag Eric Harris. Hashtag Oscar Grant. If you fight back, you die. Hashtag Trayvon Martin. If you mind your business, you die. Hashtag John Crawford. Put your hands up, you die. Hashtag Mike Brown. Proclaim your innocence, you die. Hashtag Eric Garner. Getting married, you die. Hashtag Sean Bell. Pansagging, you die. Hashtag Irvin Edwards. Beg for your life, you die. Hashtag Thaddeus McCarroll. Hashtag Cedric Barty. Just alive at 12 years old outside playing, you die. Hashtag Tamir Rice. Be outside, you die. Hashtag Rekia Boyd. Be at home chilling, you die. Hashtag Katherine Johnston. Run into your home, you die. Hashtag Ramarley Graham. Injured asking for help, you die. Hashtag Jonathan Farrell. Be in a stairwell, you die. Hashtag Akai Gurley. Smoke a cigarette, you die. Hashtag Sandra Bland.
World Jam Global Radio. This is Clarity.
Wow. Okay, we're ready to come in now, guys. My roundtable team have been having a conversation on the other side, so we're just about to bring them in. But first and foremost, let us just bring in my co-producer, Riding Shotgun, has been with me for over a year now, and boy, I wouldn't do this show without her. Teresa TJ Gallagher. How are we doing, TJ?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to have us back. It's our first show of 2020, TJ.
Yeah. Isn't that wonderful? And it's going to be a fantastic year.
Yeah. So where are we today?
Today we're doing. I want to touch back on last show of last year where we had Denise Fanning on, and we talked about just the hardship of going on and moving forward. And Christmas was upon us. And, even though we go in with a good cheer, it doesn't always work out that way. Yeah. So, and that's happened to many of us this last Christmas. So we have a roundtable of fantastic members, and they're all here, every one of them. Jerry Summers, Yolanda McNair, Patrick Lane, Stephanie Babb, Steve Martin will join us, and of course you, boss. Yeah. And all the wide shot men.
Well, we are
we'll be addressing Assimilated Normality.
Just as a quick intro to Assimilated Normality, this was a topic that was brought forward and suggested by the mother of the group, which is Yolanda McNair. Yes. So why don't we just get Yolanda, if she's available, to just explain why she wanted to do this almost like part 2 to what we did at the last roundtable. And she gave it its title. So let's let Yolanda explain it. How are we doing, Yolanda?
I'm doing okay. I can say that I made it through the holidays, Assimilated Normality to me is about that facade and that front that we put up for everybody else to see, based on whatever situation it is, whether it's calling for us to laugh or be sympathetic or whatnot. It's not saying that we're not all of those things. We still are normal people acting and functioning in that manner. But at the same time, in order to do that, we have to push past our pain or push our pain down in order to be able to function in that manner for somebody else. So
I'd imagine
I'd
kind of imagine as part of your role as president of Post Protect Our Stolen Treasures, you've had to work with a lot of families that have had to push past those barriers of pain, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But first, I want to go through our roundtable again and give everybody just a couple of moments to introduce themselves and the reasons why.
Can I interject here a second?
Yeah, go on, TJ.
Rushing is with us too, and he's a wonderful member of our roundtable family. I just inadvertently left his name out. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You
I
can
get
be
to
forgiven.
talk twice as long now.
That's okay. Not to worry. Okay. So, everybody in our roundtable team, apart from myself and Jerry Summers, has lost a member of their family to law enforcement in unlawful killing. So what I'm going to say is, let me just introduce Jerry first. He's an author. He's a former chief of police of Idaho. He has a vast insight into the operations, the protocol, and the processes of policing, nationwide. And as we talk about some of these incidents and issues and events that we're going to be going through today, he'll be able to give us an alternative view to the one that we see. And believe you me, Jerry is very fair. So let's welcome him. He's the father of the roundtable team, the daddy, so to speak. Welcome and Happy New Year, Jerry.
Happy New Year to you and all.
We can just about hear you, Jerry. Are you moved away from your microphone?
Yeah, it's a microphone.
That's better, yeah.
It's an honor to be here. All the panel members.
I think you might need to plug it in, Jerry. We cannot hear you at all.
Let me come back to you.
Okay. And with that bearing in mind, let's just go swiftly on to Patrick Lane. How are we doing, Patrick?
Good morning. Good morning, guys. I'm glad to see all of us here today. I can't wait to I can't wait to hear what this show is. I imagine that the 2 hours is going to go by very quickly today.
Well, yeah. So, Patrick, very quickly, you lost your nephew to unlawful killing, right?
I did. Taylor Rock, we lost. He was my nephew. He was shot in his car, unarmed, no record, by cops who had set him up to be on the road for that stop. So, and that happened on May 31st of 2014.
So we're talking about now 6 years on, you're still having to live through this grief without any justice.
Oh yeah, that's one thing that I've realized and come to accept is that there's no time coming that we won't be mourning Taylor. As Yolanda said, holidays are something just to get through nowadays. These years. So. But no, we will always mourn Taylor Rock. He's a great loss to our family.
Okay, so thank you very much for that, Patrick. Let us move on to Scott Russian. How are we doing, Scott?
All right. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Some of you have heard my story. My son, Tyler Rushing, was killed by a combination of a private armed security guard, officers from the Chico, California Police Department, very close to Chico State University, and also a Butte County deputy sheriff who was in charge of the K-9, which was attacking my son Lowe, including having the jaws between my son's legs. I won't get too graphic.
Yeah.
While the officers were trying to restrain him from, say, his waist up, including one of the officers who was choking my son. And that choking officer got angry. My son was, of course, flailing and struggling, as I mentioned, with the dog having him low. My son was desperately trying to get away, and He ticked off one of the Chico PD officers, who pulled out his service revolver and shot my son through the throat, basically where the Adam's apple is, and then once more in the back of his head. And then, just for good measure, the Chico Police Department had a SWAT professional with a taser who decided to tase my son when he was lying down on the floor in his own blood, to tase my son to see what might happen. So my son got 50,000 volts at the end of his life. And these are peace officers on the job.
How long are we talking? When did this happen now for you? How long have you been?
It was about 30 months ago, July 23rd, 2017. Right now, I have sued, and the case is going back and forth in the federal district court here in Sacramento, California.
Okay.
And of course, it's quite a bit of jockeying. It's called civil procedure, Kervin. I'm sure some of the other people know what I'm talking about that have gone the legal route.
Yeah.
It's very unsatisfactory, of course, because, there's misstatements, misleading facts, omissions. Obviously the defense, has taxpayer money, and they have time and energy, and they want to drag the cases out. These attorneys are getting rich on these police brutality cases so they have no compulsion to do the right thing. They want to keep stretching it out. Meanwhile, it's just torture for the families that have to keep reliving, the killing. And in my case and others like Taylor, they're violent deaths. They are, unnecessary deaths. It just adds to where I think Yolanda is going with our discussion today, is the stigma that we all face as family members, the survivors, that our family member was killed by police officers. It creates a unique, awkward interaction with family members and with the public. If you lose a child, and I've had friends, Kervin, I'm sure other folks will weigh in, that have lost loved ones, children, teenagers, younger people, to car accidents or health issues.
Yeah.
And those are devastating and a nightmare. But something, and including in my family, I've lost others, not my son and not my daughter, but nephews, nieces to health or auto accidents. But this uniqueness of being killed by a police officer, by a group of them, has really made interactions over the holidays extremely difficult for my wife and I, my daughter, as we're trying to be, somewhat gay and, happy during the season, where, we all know, and you all know, that in the back of your minds, you're missing your loved one, and nobody will speak about it because it's just a horrible, gut-wrenching thing. And so, it makes it, the stigma. I have some family members, including one who's a federal judge, my niece on the East Coast, and I know, unfortunately, it's awkward. They feel like my son must have been doing something wrong, that cops just don't kill people. And in spite of the evidence, there are certain family members that say Tyler must have done something wrong. He's responsible for his death. And of course, I'm unpeeling that onion, Kervin, and discovering that no, the cops are responsible for his death, and it makes it very awkward. And that's the stigma. And and getting back to normal and living it, no, I think, like all of you, I'd like to wake up and just think it's all a bad dream, just all a bad dream.
Okay, we're going to go into that a lot more deeply as we go into the show.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, so I hear you.
That's it for now.
Okay, we're going to come back to you very shortly, Scott. I didn't mean to cut you short there. We're going to go straight back to Jerry now, who's managed to get his line back and working again. So how are we doing, Jerry?
I'm doing terrific. Are you hearing me better now?
Oh, much better, Jerry. Much better.
Yes.
Okay. It's an honor to be here. I am always amazed when I listen to the panel of guests and their insights and their struggles. One of the things that I came across this week, and I just want to briefly touch upon it, is in the last decade, police officers have killed nearly 10,000 individuals. And in that same period of time, only 54 police officers have had charges lodged against them. It's an astounding number. It came from the Northwestern University School of Law in an article called Police the Policing that was published in 2019. And it irritates me because there is no way that you can have 10,000 citizens killed, most of them unarmed by police officers, and only have cases in which 54 police officers were facing criminal charges.
That's a phenomenal gap in a statistic, isn't it, Jerry?
It's outrageous.
Let's just put the show on the other foot for a minute. If we were civilians and we were reading an article that said there were over 10,000 murders in our capital or in our country this year, and only 54 people have actually been charged with those murders, how would we as a nation react to that?
It would be calls for all kinds of reform. And that's my point. There needs to be reform. And if you look at it, in the same period of time, police officers are killed in the line of duty at the rate of a little less than 1,000 a year. So you're looking at numbers that are just staggering.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. Thank you very much for that stat, Jerry. And I'm quite sure we're gonna come back to that stat and some more of that as we go on. Jerry Summers, the father of the group, author and former chief of police of Idaho, will bring some welcomed opinions to some of the stories that we're going to hear here today. Thank you for that intro there, Jerry. Let's move on to Stephanie Bab Hackett, who lost her beloved brother to law enforcement. Are you there, Steph?
I am. Hi.
Okay.
So, well, thank you for letting me be here. I really do appreciate that. Yeah, we're all members of a club nobody asked to join, and we pay the highest in dues. So I'm from Eugene, Oregon. My 49-year-old brother was a captain in the Army and a veteran. He was 100% on disability for PTSD and TBI, and his VA therapist called to do a well check. And the Eugene Police Department took it upon themselves to call in a SWAT team and surround his home. And he was dead within 45 minutes of him opening the door to tell him to get off his property. We are now going to trial. We've made it through years of legal machinations. We're in federal court. We've done oral arguments. We've gone through district court, everything. And so this coming February 18th, we go to trial, which is what we've asked for. Now that we've got evidence, compelling evidence that exonerates my brother's position and his civil rights. And we're lucky enough to have attorney Andrew Stroth from Chicago representing us, and it's going to be cathartic for our family one way or another. And this is a wrongful death, excessive use of force case, and I think it's going to be representative of what many of these families, our families, have been through. And I hope, upon hope, that we find justice and not a lot of peace. That doesn't go away, and that's what we're talking about today. Yeah. And the holidays, it never goes away. And so we'll just see how it goes, and hopefully it'll be a beacon of hope for other families.
Thank you very much for that intro there, Steph. We're going to go, before we go to Yolanda, who's going to be co-hosting with me today on our co-producer TJ's instructions. I'm going to go quickly to TJ. TJ has always struggled to talk about Travis, her son, who was also lost to unlawful killing by law enforcement officers. And we're going to try and just try and get something out of her today if we can, as she's one of our panelists. How are we doing, TJ?
Doing really well, thank you.
Okay, so just a little intro from you, talking about yourself and Travis, please.
Sure. Trav was killed in 2004. He was doing his own thing out, and there was a larger investigation going on. And so the ATF agents were on this other case, and there was a criminal cop that has been known for brutality and, schwanky things. And so he was right along with him. There was no deputization or anything with this cop. And so my son agreed to work with the cops a week before when he got pulled over for a traffic violation, because they really wanted some information on this other larger investigation. And they thought that he could provide that. He reneged. He did not check in with the cops. And so they were after him. Now, this one particular cop that was riding along with the ATF, or the ATF was riding along with him, had a vendetta, because Travis didn't cooperate and do things their way, and told the ATF agent, who had no idea who he was chasing, that's him, get him. And, it's very hard, boss, very hard.
I know. We're going to come back to you, TJ, and more or less, how many years now have you been without
It's
Travis?
been 15 years.
15 years.
15 years.
And doing this show is it really has helped you get through some of this grief and get some peace, right?
It's a healing. It's an amazing healing.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
And you do it so well, TJ. Absolutely so well. So we're going to look forward to trying to get you to interject as and when you can. But we're going to go over to Yolanda, who's going to give a brief introduction herself, because she also lost her daughter to an off-duty law enforcement officer who was under the influence of alcohol. So he has two reasons to be charged. When Jerry was talking about some of these stats, 10,000 killed and only 54 prosecutions, you ask yourself something like, well, and Jerry will clarify this in a minute. A law enforcement officer is not allowed to carry a firearm while he's in the possession of, while he's under the influence of alcohol, and I believe he's also not allowed to be carrying his firearm in sporting events. And I think partying is, or going to a party, or being at a party, or being involved in a party, etc., is also considered to be sporting. I'm not sure. Yolanda, clear us up on that.
Okay. My daughter Adesha was out celebrating her upcoming 25th birthday, July 7th, 2012, where she was invited to a party that our neighbor knew of. Turns out that it was at a police officer's house given by him and his wife. They had co-workers, friends, and family at this party.
You okay, Yolanda? You've muted your mic.
Sorry about I'm sorry. But depending on which witness statement you want to believe, the 15 minutes or 45 minutes after my daughter arrived, she was dead. And no, police officers are not allowed to have their weapons on them when they're participating in sporting events. And dancing is considered a sporting event by definition. And also, he was providing the alcohol. And at the time that my daughter was killed, the party had been in full swing for 6 hours. It was a fish fry. So, of course, there was alcohol involved. But pretty much the way that the Detroit Police Department handled it was that they asked the officer what did he want to do, as though he had a choice in how these policies, procedures, and were supposed to be doled out.
Absolutely incredible.
Right. He didn't have to give his statement that night, though. They held everybody at his house till a little after 3 in the morning. He didn't have to turn over his clothing that evening, though he was supposed to have done that. They never took him to the hospital to test him for drugs or alcohol, which was supposed to be done by drawing his blood. They never handcuffed him or bagged his hands to check for gunshot residue, which is something that they were also supposed to have done, seeing as my daughter was shot with his service weapon. Wow. So this is how our families are not getting their justice. You know, they're giving them options. Okay, well, how do you want to handle this? You want to talk to us now? You want to talk to us later? You want to get with somebody before you do? You know, why is it that they're always allowed to fix their story and then refix their stories months later? Yeah. Where we can't change or recant anything that we said
without incriminating ourselves
or being under immense scrutiny.
Yeah.
And assumed to be a liar because we changed something.
Well, we're gonna come into that very shortly. I just want to bring Jerry Summers back in very quickly. As a former chief of police, Jerry, you've just heard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different intros, 5 different stories of people that you sit alongside as far as this roundtable is concerned. But irrespective of them being colleagues on the show, these are 5 stories that we've just only had a snippet of as far as this particular show is concerned, although we know that we know in depth a lot more about their stories because we do family with them, we relationship with them. But if you was just sitting there on the sidelines and just getting that quick snippet of each of those stories, based on the stats that you've just given, 10,000 murdered with only 54 prosecuted, you see how that looks? There you have 5, and out of that 5, I would say all 5 of them have a clear path to a real investigation that could probably, potentially, if not definitely, lead to a prosecution.
And that's the problem. All 5 of them have a clear path to a definite investigation, which has never occurred. And it's because other law enforcement officers are protecting the ones that are doing these kinds of actions. Now, I'm not going to say that in every one of their cases it was wrong. I don't have all the facts. Yeah. The point is, you've got a problem here. You've got 10,000 citizens that have been killed. You've got 54 officers that were prosecuted. Most of those citizens were unarmed. And by those numbers alone, and by the numbers we hear right now, there should be much more scrutiny of officers, and they're not. The fact is that you have one officer looking out for another officer when that occurs. It doesn't always occur, but then for those who do step out and take a position and hold a firm line, they wind up getting weeded out of the profession. It just happens that way. If you're going to cross the line, you're going to talk or hold another officer accountable, you're no longer usable in the law enforcement community.
Well, here's an interesting point. So 10,000 murdered, 54 prosecuted. How many found guilty and punished?
I believe there was 33 that were acquitted.
So over 50% of those that were prosecuted were actually acquitted.
Absolutely. And the problem is there's and you said it at the beginning of the show. The problem is that prosecutors don't want to prosecute police because they work very closely with them, even though it's their responsibility, and that's the checks and balances of our system. If a police officer does something out of line, the judiciary is supposed to hold them accountable. And when prosecutors lie, the judges are supposed to hold them accountable. And it's simply not occurring. It's not happening. And we've got a systemic breakdown of the judicial system in the United States that allows this kind of travesty to continue to go on. And, when you do have an officer that steps up and says, look, this isn't right, we've got to do something about it, then you wind up having them washed out and attacked.
Yeah. So when you, as a listening audience, guys, you're hearing this as we try to summarize and bring you to a place where we really want to try and open this show up now. The theme of this show is Assimilated Normality. And here you've just had a little bit of a concept of what all of these individual families have been going through over the years since they lost their loved ones. And taken from the dictionary, the Cambridge Dictionary, the word assimilates, and there are various descriptions of this word. But I've picked out two that I feel kind of fit in with where we're trying to go here. And one is the verb assimilate, to take in and make a part of your basic knowledge, something learned from others, so that you can use it as your own. And the second one is people who are or become assimilated in a society become similar to others by learning and using the customs and the culture of the new society. And that one I feel is because if you've just lost your loved one, this new society we talked about at the beginning when we were speaking with Yolanda McNair as a co-founder and president of Post Protect Our Stolen Treasures. She's had to work with families over the years, hundreds, some thousands of families that she's worked with, who have created this new society, this new family of people that are grieving. They didn't choose to come together this way. They were forced into this new society of victimized families fighting for justice. So let's just bring in Yolanda very quickly and ask her if this sums up where she wants to go with this assimilated normality. But you're going to have to unmute your mic first, Yolanda. There we go. Yolanda? Hi, Yolanda. Okay, I appear to have lost Yolanda. Stephanie Babb, do you want to come in a minute, please?
I'm right here. Yes.
Okay, so
now what was what are we talking about?
So we were talking about assimilated normality, and what I used the two verbs that I found from the Cambridge Dictionary. One was to take in and make a part of your basic knowledge, something learned from others, so that you can use it as your own. And the other verb was people who are or become assimilated in a society become similar to others by learning and using the customs and culture of the new society. And I was talking about in particular, Yolanda, who is the founder and president of Post Protect Our Stolen Treasures, of having to work with families who have become this new society of people that didn't want to come together as a group, but have been forced together as a group as they fight for the justice for their lost loved ones. Is this a fair interpretation of what this assimilated normality is about?
It is. I hate using the word normality. It's an existence we didn't choose. But yes, it's just human nature to become used to it, I guess. As far as working with the families, it's ironic that years ago I went through the training for 6 months of training, which is consequently the same amount of time that a cop goes through to get their badge, which is longer than a hairdresser does to get their license. However, I went through the district attorney's victims and witness advocacy program in order to become an advocate for families in need, in particular for children walking through the court system and having been victims of any kind of crime. The interesting thing is our families of victims who have been killed by police officers for any reason are not considered victims in the eyes of the law. So we really have to turn to each other for that support. And what I have found in this community, and I say community loosely because this crosses the entire United States, and in the many groups that have come together and we've been able to reach, just in the last few years, it's grown to the point that we can really reach out and find each other. Otherwise, it's a very isolating incident because, as I've said before, there is that stigma. The first question out of anybody's mouth is, well, what did they do to get shot by a cop? And like qualified immunity, there's an automatic response of responsibility on the victim. And so in qualified immunity, a cop is automatically given the prejudice toward the law in a court of law. So it kind of comes full circle. So we have each other to rely on. And that's what it's come to. And I think that that's what's made it I won't say it's made it normal. I'll say what we do is we offer each other techniques and skills and support to help make our lives a little more normal during this tragedy, during this event that doesn't stop. It's something, it triggers everybody, has this, we talk about PTSD and post-traumatic stress syndrome. And it really does do that. It puts you in a state of fight or flight. And everybody is trying to deal with this trauma in their own way. And it's just been proven time and time again for any kind of trauma that reaching out and getting help from family members, community, when something like this happens, it affects your whole family. Yeah. And so you are kind of all left on your own island unless we get help from the outside. And in our situation, there is no outside. We're all together in this. And there is an immense amount of respect and regard for each other and what we've been through. It's literally one of the only organizations I've ever seen that has an absolute across the board, all the different groups and everything else, just regard, and especially for the mothers who have lost their children. And
here's
goes on, but making this.
Here's the reality, Steph.
Sorry, go ahead.
Whether it's an individual that believes that their loved one was wrongly killed, or whether it's an individual that is uncomfortable with that position and feels that their loved one might have actually done something wrong and potentially put themselves in harm's way. I don't want to use the term deserved it, because nobody deserves to die that way, right? They still have to deal with that grief, right? It's still the loss of a loved one, right? What makes this family, this unity, this assimilated normality so different is majority of the people that we're talking to or we're talking about are dealing with loved ones that they 100% wholeheartedly believe, right, was not in the pursuit of criminal activity, was unarmed, and definitely did not deserve to die because they had no criminal convictions or history, or they weren't even on the police radar, and nobody can fathom how they managed to lose their lives at the point of time in which they did, which makes this issue so much more difficult for people to grab a hold of, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Nobody understands the concept that a cop who is meant to uphold the law and protect our community is going to kill somebody unnecessarily. We just don't have that in the way our culture is we just don't accept that. And so we're the ones who are changing the way that looks as police become more militarized and they're killing with impunity. And that means that they can kill without repercussions of the law. Oh my God, I just lost where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
I want to take us somewhere. So hold tight, right? Hold tight. I want to take us to an article that I found by Roshan Meadows Fernandez, right? And I'm going to read from this and paraphrase it as best as I can, right? She says here, over the last few months, she has spent time speaking with both mental health professionals and the loved ones of police brutality victims, and it's been an experience like no other. Nothing can prepare you to listen to the stories of families who have been robbed of those they love and justice. That's a powerful sentence. Nothing can prepare you to listen to the stories of families who have been robbed of those they love and justice. And as a society, we don't care how they are affected by the cycling of brutality-related videos, and we do little to aid the families in their time of need. No event happens in a vacuum, including brutality. As a result, each death leaves a trail of heartbreak and trauma, forcing these families to develop a new normal. I have listed these individuals. Listened to these individuals say how their communities turned their backs on them and labeled their loved ones as criminals, even when they did nothing wrong. And she has cried with these individuals as they recount the heartbreak and pain of hearing their children cry for their lost parents. She had an opportunity to speak to loved ones of 4 different police brutality victims, and each story had its own circumstances and are each painful to recount. Now that's a powerful piece of journalism, just there in those paragraphs, right?
Yeah, they are. And you have
You know what? My new role.
1 second, Yolanda's just coming in there. Come on in, Yolanda.
I said, you also have to remember that when we go through what we're going through, and when we're dealing with our people in our neighborhoods, that our family members and whatnot, it becomes a form of isolation, because now you're sitting up there constantly in the mode of, I have to defend this person for being murdered, and it's obvious that they did nothing that warranted their death. And that isolates you from people. That changes your conversation, your relationship with folks. And when you go out and you try to give people what you know and express to them what your pain is, they become desensitized, because they're so used to, and we have been raised and trained to believe the police are the good guys. And instead of people actually being able to look at what they really see and take it for what it is, they will do what the press says. Don't believe what you see, believe what I tell you. The cops, you watch them murder your loved one on video, but that's not me. Or they did something that you didn't see. It just happened in a blink of an eye and you missed it, but it was worth their life.
So even in that piece, she was talking about even where communities actually turn their backs on individuals. Is that something that you resonate with in working with some of these families that you've worked with for Protect Our Stolen Treasures?
I know of families that sisters no longer speak because one doesn't want to go against the cops, but the other one lost their child. I know of family members where the children no longer speak with the mother because the mother is the only one that's fighting for the sibling. It's just easier to let it go. No, it's not. It's never going to be easy to let it go. I watch my children suffer from their sibling being gone. But it's got to be something in you that says it's time to fight. Forget assimilating and going with the flow. Because that's not going to get anything changed.
Jerry, I'm just going to bring Patrick in a minute because Patrick was talking. Sorry, not Patrick. Scott. Scott was talking about how there were some differences of opinion within his families as to the right or the wrong of how his son was killed, and I just want Scott to just go over how that affected the family as a whole. Did it tear the family apart? Are you guys still tight? Do you still, how is that situation now, Scott?
Well, basically what I'm doing, again, there's no roadmap to these situations, as we're all saying. What I've decided is that I am not going to build a tragedy into another tragedy. I'm not going to let Tyler's violent death so overwhelm me that I can't interact with other family members, regardless of how they may feel. So it's a bit superficial, Kervin, but how I'm handling it is just sort of smiling and saying, we talk about the weather, we talk about, you can't brag about your child, though. Your child's been killed by police officers. So
does it hurt you? Does it hurt you sometimes?
You can't do that.
So does it hurt you sometimes that you can't be honest about how you feel in front of people that you also love because of how they might react to your version of the truth?
Oh, of course. Yes, that's a good observation and a true one. And I'm sure other people can share their thoughts. But yeah, it's a raw nerve. It's like, I think Stephanie said, it's like a scab being ripped off, a wound every time you start the conversation, and it really is physically painful. In my case, I get like a migraine headache, like a migraine when other people are bragging about their kids or their grandkids, and I just have to kind of sit there and smile, and nod and say that's great, because I can't go there, Kervin. I just I'm kind of and they don't realize they're being insensitive. They're excited about their family or something, and I don't want to bring them down emotionally. So basically what I'm saying is my wife and I and our daughter, who's 33 and was very close to her brother, we've just decided that we're going to smile, and we're going to be friendly, and we're not going to we're not going to share our feelings. That's how we've responded.
Here's a question for all of you, and any one of you can answer, but please, let's just make sure it's only one person answering at a time. So pause and make it known which one of you wants to answer this question. But have any of you ever walked in on family members who are talking derogatory about the way that your loved one was lost, and you've just walked in and thought, wow, even after all what I've said, even after all the evidence that I've presented, even after everything that I've told you and showed you, you still think or feel that way? Has any of you ever walked in on family members or even friends that might be talking almost as if, well, he deserved it, or he asked for it, or he must have done something, otherwise it wouldn't have happened? Has any of you ever experienced that? Yes, no, maybe?
I have.
Come on, let's hear
No,
it.
I have. I absolutely have. The first thing that the newspaper put out was a picture of the front of my brother's porch with a gun. And so the initial reaction was, well, he had a gun, they had no choice, which couldn't be farther from the truth. The thing about the gun is the gun was put there, admittedly by the cops, for a evidence photo, and they said that straight out.
Sorry, Stephanie, before you carry on, most people would just believe that a cop wouldn't just put the gun there. He must have had it. Isn't that the natural reaction for people to think?
Yeah, well, people they don't want to think outside of normality, because if they do, that puts us in a position of not being able to trust, and in fact be in danger of the very people that we employ to take care of us. Yes. Who do you call if the cop is the one doing this? If we are in danger, who do you call?
And here lies the problem, isn't it? The bottom line is they want to believe that the cops are right, because if they start to doubt that the cops are right or that the cops are wrong, if they start to disbelieve it, then everything that they've been brought up to believe and trust is now a problem, right?
So you want to talk about normalcy? This is my normal. My normal 5 years ago, before March 30th, 2015, I would have never thought I would be on a podcast. I would have never thought that I would know people all over the United States. I would have never thought. I've seen hundreds of videos of people being shot, unprovoked, unprecedented. I have seen more things and talked to more people. That's not normal, but it's become my normal. I mean, if that's how you want to put normal, that's what people don't understand. That's my identity now. My whole life has been building up for the last 5 years to this trial, seeking justice. People get tired. They're exhausted. And like Yolanda said, they become desensitized. And it's up to us, the people who won't let go, to find the truth, to expose the truth.
I absolutely get it, Stephanie, because up until 6 years ago, before me starting to do this show, that wasn't my normal either. My normal was looking for the football results at the end of a Saturday to try and find out if my team won or not. That was my Saturday schedule. And then getting ready for whatever reality X Factor TV show or whatever it was that was coming on next, you know. And now for the last 6 years, my normality is interviewing another family every week who's lost another loved one through police corruption, unlawful killing, not in the pursuit of criminal activity, and unarmed. And that's now become my normal. And when I sit down and I talk to people, either whether it's at home or in the workplace, they cannot believe that I'm having these types of conversations with that kind of regularity, when there could be so many other things I could be doing with my time. And some people
Kervin,
just don't get it.
I want to jump in and just say something that without you, or with you, you have been able to bring this to light and offer and give so many families an ability, the chance to tell their story. And there's not enough I can say to you personally for doing this and giving us that chance to come together and be there for one another. And the fact that you do sacrifice so much time of yours to do this, I can't say enough to you about that. I just want to put that out there. That has to be said, because that's the truth.
Thank you, Steph. I do think that Patrick was wanting to come in a minute, so let's just bring Patrick in if we can.
Yeah, thank you, Kervin. I think also when I think back to when Taylor was killed over 5 years ago, that these conversations about what police were doing to citizens was a lot more difficult to have. I've found that in the 5 years since that people are beginning to talk about this. Here's what I believe also has to be mentioned is fear. People, we are made, to believe from cradle to grave that, crimes against them are happening all the time, or crimes against them are right around the corner, and that we need police to protect us. We're all raised with that. And the truth is maybe for a lot of people just too difficult to accept, that we really have more to be afraid of with police than any criminal that might be out there. And also, if a criminal commits a crime against us, we have a fairly high certainty that person will be charged and prosecuted and brought to justice. With police, as Jerry pointed out, we don't have those assurances. And that, in fact, we once you get into it, it's just the opposite. The impetus becomes not for the truth to come out when a cop is involved. It becomes inverted. For the truth not to come out, they begin to circle the wagons. All those processes that protect them go into play. And so we have people 5, 10, 15 years later who are still waiting to receive justice. So what I wanted to say, my point is, I think it's fear also is for a lot of people. It's difficult for them to accept that we have police out here that are doing all manner of heinous activities against citizens. And that's difficult to fathom, let alone accept.
Thank you very much. Let's bring in Jerry. Jerry, is that a good... Is that...
The assessment's correct. I mean, if you look at the history, and I want to give you another statistic to think about. I talked about shooting in which only 10,000 citizens were killed. I mean, not only, but 10,000 citizens were killed roughly, and 54 officers were charged. When you look at, there was also another study done in the 7 years preceding 2011, in which just over 6,700 police officers were charged with crimes that didn't involve shooting, with actual crimes that they committed. And the difference in conviction rates are astounding. Of those, it was 6,724 officers were charged. Of those, 71% were convicted of committing the crimes that they actually were involved in. Now, you compare and contrast that with shootings, where you have nearly 10,000 citizens killed and only 54 charged and less than 50% of them convicted. It tells you, and Stephanie made the point perfectly, and when she said, we as a society do not want to believe that the police will unlawfully kill somebody. And the reality is, unfortunately, that is occurring. And it is, we used to hear that it was only occurring with people of color. That's not the case. It's occurring across the board. And it's a systemic problem of law enforcement not holding law enforcement accountable, and the judiciary not holding law enforcement accountable. And then ultimately, when you do get one held accountable, the citizens do not want to believe, and it's hard for them to accept, that law enforcement would actually be out doing that, because if they are, then Stephanie's right. Who do you call when you need assistance?
Let's just bring in Yolanda, because Yolanda is on potentially both sides of the fence, right? Because A, she works in corrections, and B, she lost her daughter to unlawful killing by a law enforcement officer. She does a very similar job, holds a badge in the same sort of way. Yolanda, how does that feel? We lost Yolanda again. Is she going to unmute? Are we going to bring her in? Yes? No? Maybe? Okay, so we haven't got Yolanda. So, again, I suppose the question I'm asking is... no, she's not going to come in. So, TJ, are you there, TJ?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
It's crappy. Okay. It feels crappy to be the person that enforces rules and holds up laws, and then at the same time, none of those laws work for my daughter.
But they're the same laws that you have to operate by and service because of the badge that you carry, right?
Right.
So how does that feel for you, knowing that you've got to abide by this, but yet your daughter was so badly and sadly let down by the very same system?
Like I said, it feels crappy sometimes. I just don't. I guess what I do is I compartmentalize what's going on, so that I don't allow too much of my fight with the law for my daughter to affect my ability to do my job. And I always have to walk that line. But it's crappy, because I walk in there and, I'll talk to the police officers, and they'll look at me and they'll look me up and down to see my weapon and see my uniform and say, well, I'm like, yeah, but y'all killed my daughter. One of y'all killed my daughter. So it's not friendly. It's as civil as necessary, and as short as necessary as my interaction with them, simply because I don't want to allow my pain to rule my mind, or my dislike and the bad taste that it leaves in my mouth when I have to deal with them, to interfere with my ability to do my job. But I try to take officers one at a time, and I've had a couple of officers say, yeah, well, I used to work in the same department as him, or something like that, and I'm getting all this feedback of how he's not a good guy. I said, yeah, but what are you? Well, I'm a cop. But are you a good cop? Yeah, I'm a good cop. I said, for real? Then how come he's still on the force if you know he's not a good guy?
Does it make you does it make you want to do your job better?
Yeah, it does, because I'm a person that follows the rules. I use good judgment. I am fair-minded, and I understand that circumstances have to be taken on an individual basis. They can't all be just because they're wearing this or walking that way or carrying their body weight in this way that there's something wrong. It can be just what it is. But yeah, it does make it a little more difficult sometimes to do my job, especially when I have to interact with the police.
TJ wants to ask you a question. I don't know. Do you want to ask it yourself, TJ, or do you want me to ask it for you?
Sure. Yolanda, are you ever intimidated, or are you ever afraid? Are you literally scared doing your job because of police brutality victims attacking a revolution? Get back. You know what I'm asking?
Yeah, but no, I'm not. Because one, I know how to have a conversation with a person. Police don't really talk to you. They talk at you. And then they yell at you. I have a conversation with a person. Now, it doesn't make a difference how mad they are. I'm so fair in an argument, I'll stop talking and let you say what you want to say, and then I'll rebut. But I never let my temper rule me. I had a bad temper as a young person, and I worked really hard on getting control of that. So I don't allow that to overrule anything that's going on. And as far as people who are police victims and whatnot, they all know who I am already. So I don't even have to go there.
There's always that crazy person out there that, you know,
they are.
Yeah, you guys are going to have to not talk over each other.
Yeah, they're best crazy at a distance. They're never as crazy when you're face to face.
Okay, let me just bring in Jerry very quickly. So Jerry, I know you. 1 second. I know you've not been a victim of police brutality, but you have been on the wrong side of a ruling towards the end of your career. How did that feel, knowing that you've done a good job, tried to do the best that you can in your years in your career, to come across the situation that you came across? How did that feel for you?
Well, it was devastating. I'd put 23 years into a community, of which 16 was as a law enforcement officer, and the last 8 was as their chief of police. And to be dismissed as a form of retaliation, which literally ruined my law enforcement career and took away the majority of my retirement, was devastating. And I did go to federal court. We did prevail on 2 counts of retaliation. And ultimately, the judgment that came back literally was about the equivalent of 2 years worth of my income. What happened then is during that process, I couldn't get another job because everybody knew that I had been terminated, and they were trying to figure out why I was terminated. And in fact, one good chief of police friend of mine had asked me if I would consider taking over his city when he retired as a chief. And he said, but I can't even bring your name up until you get cleared. The lawsuit gets settled. So the lawsuit gets settled in my favor. And then he turns around and says, well, my mayor's not going to talk to you because you sued the city you were employed by. So either way, you lose. It's much like a victim of. It's a
lose situation.
Right, and that's the normality. That's the assimilated normality that Stephanie was even talking about. You have law enforcement that are told very early in their career, you're not to arrest another cop. You're not to testify against another cop. And if you do, your career is over. And then even the law enforcement officers get assimilated into the kind of structure that Yolanda was referring to, that, yeah, I'm a good cop, but I'm not going to say anything. Well, if you're not going to say anything and you're not going to do it within the system that you're involved in, you're not going to change the system, and therefore the whole system's corrupt. Therefore, you're not a good cop. Yeah. And Yolanda's absolutely right.
Absolutely spot on. But when you're bearing in mind, Jerry, that you invested 23 years of your life into a system that you wholeheartedly believed in, right? That you went out on a limb for, to have that turn inside out on you, basically. That, you know, the words that you used was devastating. But so is that partly the reason why you can empathize with the assimilated normality that we're talking about with victims of police brutality?
That's a huge reason. And what it caused me to do is it caused me to really look at law enforcement and how they're reacting. And I've said this previously on a show. I used to believe that the majority, like 97% of anybody who was charged of a crime, was guilty of that crime. And after going through what I went through and looking at it, I would say it's much, much less than that. And then when we look at killings, it's police killings, it's the same type of thing. I have seen, in working with this group of people, I've seen travesties that are committed by police officers and departments and prosecutors' offices, to the point where I have to believe probably 35-40% of anybody that's incarcerated are innocent, and they've been railroaded by the system.
That's, you know, when you start looking at stats like that, it's mind-boggling. I just want to bring in Patrick again, if I can. Patrick, you often kind of sit on the sidelines, listening in on many of the shows that we have, guesting in on various occasions as well. And when you're hearing the stories of some of these heartbroken individuals who are pouring their hearts out on the show, talking about the loss of their loved one, and when you talk about the format that we do this show in, where we humanize the individuals, and you hear people who are breaking down in tears as they talk about their son or their brother or their whoever it is, how they're remembering them as children, as people, as a laughing individual. And I'm not just talking about your own loss here, because you lost your nephew as well. But when you listen in and you hear this total breakdown of a human being who's now having to get to grips with their new normality, is that familiar to you as to how you first entered into your assimilated normality?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I hear those stories from our panel and from just other people that I'm in contact with, I feel complete solidarity. But I wanted to say before I go any further how thankful and appreciative I am for Jerry Summers. He has really, especially for many of us, the families that are going through this, we needed someone to somewhat restore our faith. And Jerry, with his forthrightness and being so candid about everything, has really helped me just by listening to him talk and hearing a career police officer that is saying, yeah, this is happening. We actually have stats that say, along with the stats that Jerry cited, that as many as 1 in 25 death row people that are killed on with capital punishment are innocent. Yeah. So we can really identify that we have complete breakdowns in our judicial system. I think I've heard Scott Rushing calls it a non-justice system, because the focus is not for justice; it's for some whatever resolution that they come to. But to your question, our primary mission for all of the families that have been, so ungraciously conscripted into this army that we are in now, this family that we've become, our primary mission, above everything else that we're doing, is to show the world our pain, and that really takes a tough person to do that, to be willing to do that on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. And I also want to push against a statement that about people who are victims of police brutality. I put to the group and to our listening audience that all of us, whether it's affected your family or not, are victims of police brutality. There's a system that is in place that if a police officer violates your rights, there's a system in place, and that is working well for them, that is designed to protect the officer and designed to malign the citizen. But with families also to your question, I just feel complete and total solidarity. I'm so waiting for February for Stephanie Babb's brother's case. I'm so tied into that. Many of the people on our panel I've talked to, and I've gone and looked at videos. There are actually videos that we can watch too, and they're horrible. But I feel so connected to the people here that I felt it incumbent upon myself to find out as much about their particular cases as I can. And I have to say that for this panel, all of these losses deserve further and greater investigation, quite simply. So.
Thank you very much for that, Patrick. As we were talking about Stephanie's going to court next month. It's been a long battle trying to get there. You've had to fight against fights. You've had to fight against those that try to portray your brother Brian as something that he was not. You've had evidence that tried to mount up in order to justify their kill. You've had to fight to get all of the release for the information that you needed so you could actually mount a considerable and suitable attack. I just want to work out for you, how do you stay normal enough to be able to continue to seek the truth while you're still going through such a painful experience?
That's a good question. My kids keep me grounded, and his kids. That's the answer. His kids. And the reason why is because I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm compelled to do it because I would hope that if that happened to me, that if he were here, he would see that it needed to be done for my children. So they can live their life saying, you know what? My dad didn't do anything wrong. He didn't deserve that. My dad was a good man. He was a captain in the army. He served his country. He served it well. And he didn't deserve that. And that, you know what? People in authority can do things wrong. And this isn't about throwing the book at the cops. This is about justice. This is about finding the truth in our society today. This is about a constitution. How is it that one group of people are withheld from being accountable? How does that work? I don't feel is it that's a good role model, a good example for our kids today to respond to have to live with. So without me fighting, even if we lose, and we're not going to, but even if we lost, they will see that I have not given up. And they will see the evidence that I found, and they'll see the truth.
And that is where the victory lies. The victory doesn't actually lie in the result. The victory lies in the fact that we don't give up. We don't lay down and play dead. I mean, when Jerry talked about those stats at the beginning of the show, 10,000 individuals killed, and only 54 officers have been prosecuted, and out of those 54, 33% of them were found not guilty, and there was no further action. Now, when I spun that on its head, and I'm going to ask you all to please summarize and give me your opinion on this, and I'll go down the list of you all. Jerry's already answered, but I'll ask again: if we were living in a society where we were sat down in our living rooms with a newspaper in our hand, or looking at the evening news headlines, and the broadcast came out, and this is what it said: 10,000 people have been murdered in your city in the last X amount of time, and we have only prosecuted 54, and out of those 54, 33% of them we've decided were not guilty as charged. How would you feel if that was the society that you were living in, that was the community that you were living in, and those are the laws and the stats that were facing you as a community or a nation? How would you feel? And let's start with you, Scott.
Unmute myself here. I think you hit on something there, Kervin, that the victory, which none of us will really win because we've lost our loved ones, and that is the loss. But the victory comes in the fight. If we, and all of us here are fighters, if we don't pursue justice for our loved ones, then the bad guys have won. And by bad guys, I mean the injustice system that Patrick was referring to. I call it the injustice system. They win. You know, the cops and the DA, and they want us to go away. They want to beat us down. So we will lose not only self-respect, but we will let the bad guys win if we don't fight whichever way we can do it legally. Every case is different. Every case has different twists and complications. But nevertheless, we have loved ones dead at the hands of police. And as Jerry said, 10,000, versus 54, officers held accountable. That right there is a mind-boggling, ridiculous, vile what can I say? I can't think of enough words. The injustice system. And then on the other hand, like someone like Jerry, who's a good cop, who's attempting to police the police, get out rogue cops, he suffers from the injustice system. And, so the public, that's what's so important about what Jerry's doing and what we're doing and Professor Seth Stoughton is doing and my friend Norm Stamper, who's a writer out of Seattle. They're getting the public to finally realize that the system is broken. The injustice system is broken. And that's where people like Yolanda and me and all of you, we've got to be strong emotionally, and we've got to be, we just can't fall apart, because then the bad guys win, Kervin, and we can't let them win. The victory is in the fight.
Thank you very much. Patrick, correct us with the maths.
Yeah, I was just I just chimed in that it's not 33% of that 10,000. Well, it's 10,000 who were found to cases. 54% were 54 out of the 10,000 were prosecuted, and 33 out of the 54 actually were convicted. And so that's not 33%.
33 were not convicted. Only 21 was.
Oh, wow. That's even worse.
Yeah.
If
I'm correct, correct us if I'm wrong, Jerry, but I believe 33 of the 54 were not further prosecuted or were not found guilty.
I believe that's correct. I have to double check it, but yes, I believe it was more than 50% were acquitted.
Right. I'm reminded of I'm not one to really to bring it in, but when we're talking about this issue and how do we take our place in this assimilated normality, but there's a scripture that says that he that loveth his life shall lose it, and he that hateth his life in this world shall keep it unto life eternal. And so I say that those of us who are here, and I truly believe this with all of my heart, regardless of what beliefs we might hold, are called here.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that in all of the people that I've talked to on this panel and elsewhere, that there is this one underlying characteristic that we all seem to have in common, and it's that we are fighters. We are willing. We don't love this life so much that we won't fight for our loved ones and others. I've talked to some of the people on the panel and just about their lives, and it seems like that Yolanda's one that element of being a protector is very strong within in the people that take up these types of fights. So I think that when we talk about how do we take our place in the world now that our world that has been so horribly altered? I think that's the reason that we love our children, and the truth for all of us, the sad truth is that nothing that we do is going to restore our families. It's going to repair our families. We can't bring our loved ones back, but we can provide a foundation and steps for the ones that may follow. And so that's so important, I believe.
Just to add an additional scripture, there's a scripture in Isaiah that says this: "Then I heard the voice of the Lord say, who shall we send as a voice to these people? Who will go to them? And I said, here I am, send me."
Here I am.
And there it is, right there in a nutshell. We are all called for a time such as this. And the battle is not for the swift, but it's definitely going to be for the sure. We need to stand firm in this battle. We're talking about assimilated normality, and Yolanda wants us to move on a bit. We're coming up to the last half hour of the show. She wants to talk about how we get along in society with this assimilated normality. Well, there's no other way that I can talk about getting along in society with this assimilated normality without mentioning the fact that at the beginning of the show, just before we was going live, one of our panel members, Dee Martin, the sister of Andre Gladden, copped out and said that she had to rush off because her sister had gone into hospital and had gone into labor. And she's just given birth to an absolutely wonderful baby girl. And we send her our love and our congratulations. But that's the kind of normality that people who have lost loved ones, who are fighting through these types of battles, have still got to go through. We've still got to do family. We've still got to do birthdays. We've still got to go to work. We've still got to keep house. We've still got to be the head of the family. There's stuff that we've still got to do, right, Yolanda?
Absolutely. I mean, when Adesha was killed, 4 of my 7 grandchildren were here. I still had to do my grandma thing, and my grandkids loved me. You know, I look forward to seeing them, being with them, and doing the exact same thing that Adesha loved. Adesha loved watching kids learn and showing them different things. But at the same time, when I get out and I'm amongst my peers and my guy, that's what I call my boyfriend. He's too old to be a boy, so I'll call him my guy. I still have to be a person. I still have to be a woman. I still have to be Yolanda. But it's not always easy because there are days where all I do is miss Adesha. You know when you're having that experience, when you're in that place, and no matter what you do, you can't take yourself away from the thoughts of Adesha and missing her and what she'd be doing if she was here now. What does that do to you? It kind of puts you in a trance where you're kind of numb to everything. You know, you don't. Okay, I'll tell you what happened Christmas. I couldn't wait for Christmas to be over. I really couldn't. And it felt like I hated Christmas, which I don't. I just hate the commercialism of it. But I didn't feel like celebrating. I didn't feel like I had any kind of joy to give to anybody. And I just wanted the day to be done. I cooked a whole bunch of food. That's where my love was poured into the food. Everybody ate good. They were happy with that. But the moment 12 o'clock struck, I could feel the pressure kind of leave. It alleviated itself from me. And that's what we go through, where there are times where you just can't make yourself happy. You can't put on that smile, and you just don't want people around. Not because you don't want people around. It's just, I don't want what I'm going through to affect everybody else.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Sorry, just one more thing, Yolanda. Do you ever feel like it totally immobilizes you? Yolanda?
No, it doesn't totally immobilize me anymore. And I have to say that because, like Scott, I used to get the migraines. I used to get the times where it was just nothing I could do would make me comfortable in my own skin. You know, I was too hot. I was too cool. It was just everything bothered me. And what helps me is helping other people and telling them, I know what you're going through. I've been where you are, and you're going to get where I am. No matter what, I'm going to be there to help you get where I am. You know, because people look at me and they say, oh, you're so strong, you're handling it. You just don't know.
I hear you. Thank you very much for sharing that, Yolanda. Stephanie, your normal is not the normal, right?
No, it's not a normal at all. And I just messaged you guys this kind of really strong thing. My normal isn't normal. I don't know how to define normal. My new normal isn't the definition of what normality is. I don't know what's going to happen. The last 5 years since the day that he died, I mean, my dad didn't want to have a memorial. And I went against the norm. I went against his wishes and said, that's not, we can't do that. And within 5 days, you know, I planned the memorial. We'd had a viewing of his body, the things that we have to deal with, you know, being called from the funeral director for a hat because he had a hole in his head. And my mom needed to see him to say goodbye. That's my normal. And that's been my normal for the last 5 years. I don't date. I work a job at night that I can make my own hours, and I don't deal with people. So during the day, I can deal with whatever is happening in the case and following it and working with other families, working for justice. That's my normal. So I don't know how to define normal otherwise. All I can say is what has become normal for me, and I know that that's not other people's normal.
Scott, is it possible that we can sometimes forget about the needs of other family members while we're in the midst of being consumed with this assimilated normality?
Yeah, it's a real issue. Like Yolanda said, she hit at the word. It's compartmentalized. I'm probably not saying that right. Compartmentalized. Decompartmentalize. It's not an easy word, but the idea, I think, is what I agree with. Is that you can't. We have to fight sharing our anger with other people who depend on us, who don't want to see us angry. And I think even our deceased, our loved ones, would not want their death to control our lives. I've said this before. I don't think my son, who was a very positive and loving person, artistic and creative, and owned his own business and so on. He was very successful in his own right. Not that the cops and the bullets knew that, but he wouldn't want me to wallow in this anger that I feel. He would want me to fight for justice, but he wouldn't want that anger to spill over, I don't think, to other family members. So yeah, we have to keep that in mind, Kervin. It's not easy because in my case, yeah, there are times it gets me down when I have to talk to my attorney or share horrible photographs. My son was shot through the head as well, twice actually, in throat and head. And there comes time where we have to look at medical reports, and it comes flooding back, and it just basically, it does physically wipe me out. I just have to kind of take a nap, which I can, but I have to close my eyes and just, I guess you'd say, pray or meditate on other things to try to get my head together. And yeah, it's a life-changing event. That's all I can say, and not in a good way.
Thank you very much for that, Scott. TJ, we don't often get you to share on what your struggles are, but I know just how, I suppose consumed is the wrong word, but the love that you have for Travis and the memories that you have for him, it's not even about the battle for justice anymore. It's just about trying to keep his memory alive so that you can live some kind of normal. What's your normal, TJ?
Right. Normal. Wow. My normal left, I guess it left when Travis was murdered. I thought my life all together and everything, and I was happy with where I was at, and I was happy with everything in my life. And then boom, Travis was murdered, and everything just was demolished. I had to find out who I was again, and I'm still looking for who I am. There's no normal. Everything changes. Nothing stays the same. Yeah. And nothing has ever been the same since. There's no normal. It's an absorption of absorbing all this new information that is fed to us over law enforcement. The way I looked at it was law enforcement and not standing up to who I thought law enforcement was all growing up. It was a huge devastation, and it's affected every part of my life. every part. And it is about Travis. It is about remembering and making memories. Because, how do you fight the system? The system is so corrupt. It astounds me.
It's not just Christmas, though. But what are birthdays like? Because I would have imagined when that Travis was alive, coming up towards his birthday was a time where you started to look for the type of presents that you wanted to get for him.
Right. And, and it all blends into the same holiday thing. That empty chair is gone. The empty chair's there and Travis is gone. And every single year it's the same. No matter how you think you get used to it, you don't get used to it ever. And it's a common problem to have information overload when you're trying to find the justice and to pursue that. It's very difficult. This panel has really helped me with healing and learning different avenues to take, and I'm very grateful for you all. Thank you.
So, two of our former guests, Jerry has just corrected us. The stats are only 35% were convicted, 40% were acquitted. That's the actual, and the balance of cases are still pending. Two of our past guests, recent guests in fact, Christina Lee Rose says that her whole worldwide view has changed due to what was done to her son. Maria Kofinko says after the verdict of her nephew, if you remember correctly, they were awarded 32 point something million dollars after her nephew was wrongly, unlawfully killed. She says, I thought I was going to move on. I was so wrong. My next fight is to have the carotid neck restraints banned. Now that's that neck hold. And I'm trying to think there was somebody else who had recently had that neck hold on their son. Lynn Eaglefeather. So Paul Castaway was also murdered or killed by cops with that neck hold around his throat, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
13.2 million, Maria Kofinko says. So they were awarded 13.2 million. But yeah, both Maria Kofinko and Lynn Eaglefeather both had loved ones that were killed by that neck hold. And Maria Kofinko says that her next fight is to get that hold, that restraint banned. So after the verdict, she thought she was going to be able to move on. Family gets the money, and and we, as we said, even on that show, it's not about the money, but you've got a verdict, you've got to win. You're not going to get them into court and get them sentenced and send them to prison, but you've got the civil lawsuit, and that's worked. But the fight carries on, right? Let's go swiftly to Patrick.
Absolutely. The fight continues. My new normal, if we want to, since that's what we're calling it, is, about a week before November 13th, which is Taylor's birthday. I feel that creeping depression that happens about a week before all holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, that creeping depression happens. In fact, I rarely call off work, and this last holiday season, it was just so bad for me. It was that I actually called off a day where it was just like, I can't make it. And I was very honest with him. I'm just in this funk about this, and I'm not going to be able to make it today. Rare for me. But I will say this, is that what I've found and what I've known for a large portion of my life is that there's power in groups of people. There's healing in groups of people. And that's how we get through it, is by realizing that we are not an island unto ourselves, which I think most of us feel when this initially happens, is that there's no, and then we try to talk to other people and we're met with blank stares. We feel like there's no one that could possibly identify with what we're going through. But now we know that there are many families, and families are being added every week at an alarming rate to this club that we're in. That's where I found my healing at is through all of you people and others, that I am not alone. My new normal is convincing my sister who relives the last moments of Taylor's lives, has relived that over and over for over 5 years now, reassuring her that in that moment, Taylor was okay. That these are the new things that we deal with in our lives. And the group has promoted more healing than I can really talk about. I'm very thankful. And also, Kervin, this format, allowing families. I mean, you have a lot of groups that are doing things on this issue, but I have not seen any group that gives families the platform that you have given us. And for that, sir, you must be commended. Thank you very much.
Don't make me cry live on air, please, Patrick. Behave yourself.
Absolutely true.
I want to bring TJ back in because TJ's touching on a subject that I really want to try and find a way to close on if I can. You see, because in moments of grief, in times of adversity, when we're going through a difficult circumstance, there's only one thing that I know to do, and that's to pray. And the power of prayer, inviting the comfort of the Holy Spirit and the living God into your life, that is the only thing that can fill that hole, that gaping hole that's tearing you apart. Because man can't, drugs won't, alcohol can't, promiscuity and sex and gambling and wild living, none of those things will fill that hole. No. None of those things will bring you comfort. None of those things will give you peace. None of those things will direct you to any form of victory whatsoever. But there's that moment, that intimate moment when you get on your knees to the living God and you give him what's on your heart. You give him everything that you've got on your heart, and you're into that intimate moment of prayer. There's that peace that surpasses all understanding, that man can't comprehend.
Yes.
Coming in, TJ.
That's right. That's so spot on, boss. I find myself in that situation so much that I'm constantly feel like I'm praying, for strength and for understanding and, the things that we need in our lives. And the only way to get there is through the Great Spirit, is through the Lord. And it brings a comfort that is, that you have to just embrace. You want to embrace it. Because it's such a relief from the pain and a relief from the pressures that we somehow have developed common problems for dealing with the death of our loved ones. And only through God, only through the Lord, can we find that awesome comfort. And I can't explain the word comfort, but he just takes over. So it's a complete surrender. And that's the bottom line. Surrender. We give it up to him, and that's how we get through it. That's how we make it.
Yeah, I want to bring in Scott if I can, because I do know that Scott raised his family in belief, stands on the word of God, and I just want to see how much comfort he gets from that for himself, as well as, standing in prayer for the rest of his family members.
Well, thank you again, Kervin, for for the forum. I do find myself looking forward to the shows. I think other folks do, and I can tell. And I'm always talking about the show, and the faith that my son had was strong. I think he was ready to meet his maker. I knew he didn't want to. He was 34 years old, but I believe he was ready. One of the last conversations I had with him, maybe 3 days before he was killed, was that, he was in Chico, California, helping some homeless people, and he felt God had put him there. And, being the dad that I I am. I said, just be careful. Sometimes homeless people have mental health issues, and you might be, injured. So just be careful. And when you're talking or working with these folks, he was only there, 4 days, so he was just doing research and as a journalist and photographer, and so I warned him to watch out for the mentally ill people and it was the police that killed them. But the point is, he was ready to meet his maker, and I don't think that I think he's at peace, and that helps my wife and I be at peace with that. And we've said that to ourselves. He actually left a message on one of our voicemail that he felt God was leading him there, and we still have that. We can listen to that voicemail, Kervin, when we get angry, when we want to blame God, and I do want to say something. It's a little off topic, that when people do say to me something like, Tyler's in a better place now. He's with God now, or he feels no pain now. I don't know how you all feel, but that doesn't hit me very well. Yeah. That is not comforting. And I don't share with them that story I just told all of you and the World Wide Web. I think Tyler would want to be here. I think God would want Tyler with his family. He's a young man. I don't think God was calling Tyler. I think it was rogue cops that had the devil. We're being influenced by that evil that caused Tyler's death. And
if we believe in good, then we have to believe in evil.
Correct.
And the bottom line is, that's where God walks with us. He walks with us in our circumstances. Everybody says, "Oh, well, God must have wanted it to happen, or God allowed it to happen, or God made it happen." No. God doesn't make anything happen, because in the beginning, if you have faith, if you believe, it says that he gave us dominion. Dominion is ownership. He gave us ownership, right? So in other words, for him to actually have to intervene in anything in our lives, we're going to have to give him permission to come in, right? So that nullifies that argument. But what God can do, and that's when we do invite him in, through prayer and petition. It says in Philippians 4:6, it says, "Do not worry or be anxious about anything, but in everything through prayer and petition, make your requests known to him, and he will give you the peace that surpasses all understanding." Now that's when you're inviting him in and you're giving him what's very most on your heart, and he's able to walk with you in whatever circumstance that you're going through. But God doesn't create these circumstances. He doesn't tell the police to go and kill your loved one. Right? He doesn't take the gun and pull the trigger. All of this is just nonsense. It's man's excuse for not submitting to the will and the purposes of God. And I get that. People have to find their own way there, right? But let's not start getting into this place where we start blaming God for everything that goes wrong, because he gave us dominion. It says that God made everybody good, but people found ways to do wrong. That's what the Bible says. And, a child that isn't born at 3 hours old and says, "Well, when I grow up, man, I'm going to be selling bags of weed on the corner." A child ain't born and goes, "Oh, I'm going to be a gangbanger." A child ain't born and says, "Oh, I'm going to be a rapist or a murderer or a bank robber." People learn to do these things. These are behaviors that are learned by whichever sinful natures that other people are displaying through TV, media, and the rest of the world that we're watching. But what God will do is he will walk with you in your circumstance. Whatever that problem is, whatever that situation, whatever that circumstance that you're going through, the loss of a loved one, he will walk with you in that circumstance when you invite him in. Because where there's good, there is evil. Our battle is not with flesh or blood, but principalities in high places. I don't want to get on my high horse and start preaching to you all here tonight, but I want to tell you that the God that I serve is a loving God, he's a good God, and he's a God that walks with me in my circumstance. Let's just bring in Jerry before we kind of round this off a bit.
Wow, how do I add anything to that? a lot of people don't know this about me, but prior to going into law enforcement, I was actually in the ministry, ordained pastor.
Wow.
I have a strong faith. My undergraduate degree is in pastoral ministries, and I just have to say it's normal for us to get angry and to get angry at God when we go through these things. And what I found the entire church community turn against me within the community I was in. Not God, but the church community. And as a result, I hadn't been into a church since 2005 until last year. And I know that I need to get back into fellowship, but it's very difficult when the problem's not God, it's God's people. So I'm praying for everybody on this panel. I don't say that lightly. I truly go into intercession for them. And I believe that everything you said, Kervin, is absolutely correct. God will walk with us when we're in our deepest struggles.
Amen. Who the Son sets free is free indeed. And all we've got to do is ask him to come into our lives, to be our Lord and Savior. And everything and all things are possible through him who loved us and called us by our names. Amen. Yolanda, this was your show.
Amen.
I want to let you round it off. 5 minutes and to close. Come back, Yolanda.
Okay, I'm here. I just want people to know and understand that because our lives were changed by somebody that we didn't invite in to change it, and that they stole someone from us, that in the end, you have the decision of who has the power.
Yeah.
You know, our lives have been changed. They've been warped, and our direction and our fight has been taken from us as far as our choice. Me, I'm a fighter, so I don't have a choice. I got to fight. I got to fight for my daughter. I got to fight for everybody else. But how you fight, how much you allow that fight to consume you is your choice. Don't live your life to fight. Live your life. That's the best way that you can honor your loved one that's gone. Don't stop living.
The word says, cast your burdens onto him, for he cares for you. His yoke is not heavy. His yoke is light. God wants to carry your problems for you. He doesn't want you to carry them for yourself.
Right.
And the word also says that he fights for us. He goes before us. And see, I do a new thing. Do you not perceive it? For I'll make a way in the wilderness and in the desert. You know, when things are looking bleak, when things are looking dark, when things are looking unobtainable, God makes all things possible, and he makes the way clear. He's the way maker. God is the way maker. And the word also says in Isaiah, for his ways are not our ways, and his thoughts are much higher than our thoughts. And we need to start changing the way we think and seeing things from a different perspective. Amen?
Amen.
Well, this has been a really absolutely glorious show, and I'm so glad that we were able to bring God right into the middle of all of this. I want to thank each and every single one of you, and you've all got 30 seconds to sum up your last comments for this show. And let's just start with Stephanie. 30 seconds, Stephanie.
30 seconds. I don't think I do anything in 30 seconds, but thank you. I just want to thank everybody. Honestly, your guys' presence has brought things together for me, and have given me a lot of hope. It's given me a voice to be heard, and looking forward to that trial on February 18th. We'll see where that takes us. Thank you, Kervin.
So do not be conformed to the ways of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You'll find that in Romans. Let's go, Scott. Round up, 30 seconds.
Just again, thank you, Kervin, and thank you for creating this platform and for your positive energy. and for letting me bloviate. And I apologize if I extended my welcome, but
you've never extended your welcome, my friend. You are a valued member of this family. Thank you. Let's go in with Patrick. Round up, please.
Yeah, great being here. It was another great show. What my overall feeling coming off this show is that these situations have made us stronger than any of us could have ever believed or imagined that we could be. And I also have a sense, and I'll be really quick, that these circumstances happen to the right or wrong people, depending on who you looked at it. Because the people that I know and the people on this panel, we are fighters. Yeah. And there are maybe other people that they could have picked on, if we want to use that term, than us, because I don't see any quit in any of us. No. And I'm just so thankful to be a part of this, guys.
Amen. Thank you very much, Patrick. Jerry?
God is good all the time, and all the time God is good.
Amen. Thank you very much for that, Jerry.
Amen.
TJ.
How about that, boss? What a wonderful show.
Amen.
And, I would be reiterating what everyone has said if I had any comment at all. I do know, though, that without all of you, I don't know where I'd be.
Hey, we got you, TJ. We got you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yolanda, the last word is with you.
I just want everybody to know that I love and I appreciate you and everything that you add to me and how you help me grow. And that even though we're dealing with this, we are growing and we are evolving into better people. And each one reach one, each one teach one. Just somebody else a little bit.
Thank you very much. Well, listen, you guys can join me again tomorrow morning for my Church Before Church, 8 o'clock GMT time. You know what time it is, Lorraine Thompson and Vanessa Whirling, and anybody else that wants to join us tomorrow morning for my Church Before Church, my gospel show. Apart from that, we'll be back next Saturday for another Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio. And we just want to thank all of our panelists for being here today and being so open, honest, and transparent. And may the grace of God be with you until we meet again in this place. Amen? We're out of here.